بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. معكم الدكتور سيد الخولي، أستاذ إدارة الأعمال. إن شاء الله هنبتدي نشرح كورسات online. In case of emergency we can use it online. Therefore we are going to start from whatever we ended up in the classroom. I believe we finished for all groups, about 7 groups out of 8 or 9. We finished the first 3 chapters, chapter 1 and 2 and 4. And now we are going to talk about chapter number 5, which is referred to it as inventory management. Basically, we are going to introduce some basic concept about some definition for inventory management. We'll start with the what inventory. What is inventory? Inventory can include 3 main categories. Inventory simply mean it's a stock of items or material, or this material can be raw material or work in process to use to facilitate production or to satisfy customer demand. So basically, inventory, we can refer to it as some items. Items, it can be materials, raw materials, or component parts, which we can use it to make the process, facilitate the production process, or to satisfy the customer. If we talk about end product, our finished product, will satisfy the customer demand. So that is what we call it as inventory. There are 3 main categories of inventory, as you can see. Raw materials, which is whatever we are going to use as a raw materials for a construction company. The raw materials is sand, cement, and so on. For textile industry, the raw material is cotton, and so on, and some dyeing material, and so on. Work in process inventory, which inside the factory itself, we need some material in order to keep the process running. We call it as work in process inventory. Or inventory can be a finished product. After you finish the final product, you are not going to send it to the customer. It goes from the manufacturer to warehouses where they store it, and then they sell to the final wholesaler or the final customer. We call it as a finished product. So there is basically 3 categories of inventory. It's the raw material, which is the basic materials which goes into the manufacturing process. Work in process, whatever inside the factory, we need some material to keep the process going. We call it work in process, or WIP. Or it can be done as a final product, whether it's cars, whether it's a refrigerator, TV, or so on, or in furniture store, tables, chairs, and so on, which we send it to warehouses, and from the warehouses to the final customer. There is 3 basic decision in inventory. Inventory decision is simply where the purchasing professionals should make explicit decision regarding the following: what stock, what kind of material we should stock. The purchasing professional at the very minimum must meet the requirement and needs of the manufacturer and distribution operations. That's basically in order to avoid any shortage or surplus. What to stock, what kind of material we should stock in our inventory in order to keep the process running. How much to invest? It depends on the budget of the organization. So if you have a big budget, you can use what we refer to it later on as a quantity discount. You buy in large quantity in order to keep large quantity. It means with the lowest price in order to keep the process running. So how much to invest is to person professional must first review the level of capital support for inventory. This decision is usually made at the top level, at the vice president level in the organization. And then the third decision, how much service to offer. It is the customer service, what level of protection against stock out in case of the demand is greater than the capacity or stored capacity. So we need to have any backup inventory or to stock protection against stock accessible for the competitive environment. So if we don't have it, other competitor will take over, and so on. So That is what we call it surplus. Surplus means your capacity is simply your capacity is less than your demand, so we run out of shortage or stuck out. Therefore, it is possible to for the customer to change this manufacturer and go to another manufacturer and so on. So in shortage, we call it as a double whammy. Double whammy simply means we lose the current customer and we lose the future customer at the same time. So what we mean here, what level of protection against stock out is acceptable? That is a decision for the competitive environment. It is possible to achieve a service level of 100A. It is impossible to achieve a service level of 100%. 100% mean equilibrium. Your capacity is equal to your demand. That's what we call it. So that is, we call it as equilibrium. It means you have idle system, and that's what we are going to talk about in the next chapter, which is called just in time. What we need is exactly satisfy the process of production. Uh, why is needed the inventory? Number one is to meet the customer demand. We have two kind of demand, which we call it as independent demand, where one item it doesn't have to do anything with the other item. It is unrelated to the demand of other item. In other words, an independent item must be forecasted independently. That is, we call it as independent demand. So independent demand in a simple format is one item, it doesn't depend on another item, or one process doesn't depend on another process. Dependent demand in the other way around is direct derived from demand for another inventory item demand. So one demand of, for example, if you are in a construction business and you have materials such as cement, sand, sin, and so on. So one you cannot have the whole foundation without sand, for example. So sand depend on cement and so on. So one item is related to another item. To produce or to purchase in economic size, to face unexpected demand or longer lead time. So longer lead time, it means the customer flexibility and the customer will not be satisfied. Another definition of inventory can be classified in three main categories, which we call it as a cycle inventory. What cycle inventory simply means quantity that is held primarily to take advantage of economic of scale in production process, feeding production or customer. So that is the cycle inventory. It is over the year we have several cycles. Another category for inventory, we call it as safety inventory. Safety inventory means the backup inventory. In case we run out of stock, we have a backup inventory in order to keep the process running, which we call it as a safety inventory or safety stock. Inventory carried in excess of expected demand to offset possible increased demand or increased lead time. That is when you have simply capacity less than your demand, so we run out of shortage. So in order to avoid shortage, we need a safety or backup inventory to keep the process running. We have also another category which we call a seasonal inventory. Seasonal inventory, for example, for soft drink industry, where we have in the summer high demand for soft drink. When it comes to the winter, it is low demand. When it comes the spring, it is high demand for soft drink. When it comes the fall, it's low demand. So it's like seasonal inventory, it means the demand goes high, low, or high, low, high. It depends. For example, in Ramadan, for example, as I gave you in the lecture before, in Ramadan we have a high demand. So every year in we have the holy months of Ramadan where the demand for our product it is going to be always high. Inventory that can be accumulated during low sales period and depleted during high usage period to avoid problems associated with adjusting capacity. That's what we call it as seasonality or seasonal inventory. Cycle inventory, as you can see in this graph, where we have order of 1,000 unit. When we reach 0 unit, we assume we reach another order, and that is the idle model, where we have we have a new order arrive by the time our inventory level reach zero. So over time, we have several cycles over the year. The time, as you can see in the horizontal axis, that's the time, which it is simply a year. So each one of the red line, it's considered as a cycle. So in this graph, we have one cycle, two cycle, three cycle, four cycle. Over the year, we have several cycles. So how many cycles per year? It is simply the annual demand divided by the optimum quantity give you the number of cycle. So for example, here the quantity we order is 1,000 inventory, and there is no safety stock, of course, in this idle model. And that's what we are going to see when we talk about economic. So cycle inventory, it depends on the level of quantity you are purchasing. For example, here 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. The cycle inventory, it is the average quantity. 1,000 divided by 2 is 500, 2,000 divided by 2 is 1,000, 3,000 divided by 2 is 1,500, 4,000 divided by 2 is 2,000. So what we say here, it is the smaller the cycle it is good for business and for satisfying the customer needs, because the customer always change. So when you have shorter cycle, you are going to be flexible enough to meet the customer change. As you can see that the cycle inventory depend directly on lot size. The relationship between cycle inventory and lot size can be determined as follows. Cycle inventory is quantity divided by 2. Why? Cycle inventory, for example, relates to the issue of holding cost. What's holding cost? Is how much cost us to hold one unit. For the example we have before, if you have cycle inventory of 500, 1,000, and so on, the holding cost will increase because the holding cost is per unit. For 1,000, it's 1,000 divided by 2 is 500. 3 times 500, it's 1,500. And 1,000 times 3, 3,000. So the holding costs increase. The more we order, the more the holding cost it will increase. Therefore, as we mentioned before, lower cycle inventory is better, because the more you minimize cycle inventory, the more we reduce the holding cost, and it will be better for customer and satisfy change. The lower cycle inventory is better because why? As we mentioned in the last slide, lower average flow time. It means it takes shorter period. It can take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, and so on. So it depends how many cycle over the year. If you have 2, 3 cycle a year, it is not that good as if you have 12 cycle over a year or 20 cycle over a year. So lower average flow time, so it keeps the process running. We don't have delay and so on, and we'll be able to be flexible enough to meet the customer change. And of course, that's reflected on the work in process and raw material in the system. Lower inventory holding cost, lower working capital requirement. As we see, the more you order, the more cost, so more investment you will invest. So it depends on your budget and so on. We talk about average inventory. And average inventory is therefore cycle inventory, as we mentioned before, plus safety inventory. Safety inventory, it means when the demand is greater than the quantity. So safety inventory, it's simply cycle inventory plus safety inventory. That's what we call it as average inventory, as you can see it in the graph. Here we talk about the inventory cost. There is basically four basic costs when it comes to inventory. That is the purchasing or capital cost, where you multiply the demand, time, the price per unit or cost per unit. That it give you the purchasing capital. That is part of inventory cost. Another cost which you call it ordering cost. Ordering cost simply means how much it costs us to place an order. So every time you make an order, it costs. So it depends how many orders over the year. You multiply the number of cycle time the cost, the number of order, time, the ordering cost give you the ordering cost. Holding cost simply means how much it costs us to hold one unit inventory. As we mentioned, the more the quantity in the cycle, the higher the holding cost will be. Shortage or opportunity cost, that another cost. If you run out of inventory, whether it's raw material or work in process, it simply means you are not be able to satisfy the customer. Those opportunity costs, the customer will move to another producer or another brand or another product, and this it cost. We call it as opportunity. We are going to explain each one in details. Purchasing cost is simply the amount that the buyer must pay for inventory item. That's purchasing a large quantity can result in quantity discount. So it depends on the budget, and if you buy more, you will get a discount price. For example, if you order from 1 unit to 100 units, you get a price for example, £10 or $10. If you order 1012 unit to 200 unit, you'll get a price discount, of course, lower than the first one. And if you order more, you get less price and so on. The ordering cost is costs that are needed to order any quantity, internally or externally, inside your facility or outside of your facility. The material cost, the ordering cost component, as you can see, the paperwork part of the salary of the purchasing department, telephone, fax, postage, and for example, if you get a technical visit for the country you are buying this material from, this all included in the ordering cost. Holding cost is how much it costs us to keep one unit inventory. Cost of storage space. You need a location in order to store your materials and so on. That is handling risk of obsolescence and so on. All of this fire, spoilage and so on. That's called holding cost. Shortage opportunity costs include cost of losing customer and or urgent order production interruption and so on. We call it as shortage cost. Here we are going to talk about inventory control. Inventory control simply, we don't have to order too little or too much. Too little, it means shortage, lose business, more frequent reordering. Too much, reduce available working capital, lose of interest of capital, risk of holding, obsolescence, fire, holding costs, insurance, and so on. So the decision is not to order too little or too much. That's inventory management. Aim to hold just the right amount of stock, not too little or too much. Too little, it means shortage. Too much, it means surplus. So whether shortage or surplus, it is not good news for the organization. Now we are going to talk about the first quantitative model we have this semester, which we refer to it as economic order quantity, or for abbreviation, we call it as EOQ, economic order quantity. In order to use this model, we have some basic assumption. First of all, the unit price or cost is fixed, is given. Annual material cost is fixed, is given also. Annual discount, no quantity discount from supplier is offered for using this model. Holding cost is a fraction of product cost or price, which is also given. So in order to use the economic order quantity, we must have the following assumption. Number one, the annual demand is given, ordering cost is given, the price per unit is given, holding cost is as a percentage is also given. So again, the basic assumption for the EOQ model, first of all, annual demand is given, ordering cost is given, holding cost is given, it's fixed, and there is no quantity discount offered by the supplier. Again, we are going to redefine again the basic concept. Material cost is price paid per unit, which we refer to it as, that's fixed. We refer to it as C sub I. Ordering cost, we refer to it as S. All costs that not vary with the size of order. Fixed administrative cost, fixed transportation cost, that is the ordering cost. Holding cost, that's direct. Direct, it means what? If you order zero, you don't pay holding. So if you order zero, there is no holding. So accelerate. The more you order quantity, the more accelerate the holding cost. Cost of holding one unit in inventory for a specific period of time, usually 1 year. That's a direct relationship to the lot size, which we refer to it as H, where HD it can be a percentage of the item price. The basic samples for EOQ, D is the annual demand for the product. Q, that's the lot size or the quantity we should order. C is the cost per unit is the price. S is fixed ordering cost per order. Little h is holding cost per year as a fraction of product cost. So the equation of economic order quantity, annual material cost, we multiply the cost per unit times the demand. Annual ordering cost is simply equal to the annual demand divided by the optimum quantity times S, which is the ordering cost. Annual holding cost is the average quantity Q divided by 2 times H, where the total cost is simply equal to the following. Material cost plus ordering cost plus holding cost. For the time being, we are going to use total inventory cost for use of EOQ, how to drive EOQ model from the total inventory cost, which is include two things only, ordering cost and holding cost. By taking the first derivative for the total inventory cost, which is including ordering and holding cost, we can derive using the first derivative calculus. I don't think we can come up with the economic order equation. This graph, it shows you the relationship between all different costs. It is simply you have the ordering cost, which goes the more quantity you order, the cost will decrease. Holding cost, the more you order, the holding cost is increasing. When the intersection point at this point where the red line curve with the straight line, the blue line, they intersect in one point, that is the total cost, and that is the minimum total cost, which we will refer to it as the economic order quantity. So at this quantity, we have the lower cost, and that is the material cost. The economic order quantity, again, the total inventory cost is ordering cost plus holding cost. We are going to make some trade-off using calculus first derivative, and we can. So the optimum quantity, it's simply equal to the square root of 2 times annual demand time ordering cost divided by annual holding cost. The number of order, it's simply referred to the annual demand by the optimum quantity, where Q star, that's the optimum quantity to order, or EOQ. N star, that's the optimal number of order per year, and simply we're using this equation in order to drive total inventory cost. We have exercise here where at the end of this presentation, you will find the answer for all this exercise. For example, given the following information, monthly demand is 1,000, so we need annual demand. So we multiply 1,000 times 12, it's 12,000. The ordering cost is 4,000 for each order. Cost per unit is $500. Holding cost is 20% of the 500. So it means 2 times 50, it is $100. That is the holding cost. We ask you here to find out the number of units that the manager should order. It means the optimum quantity to order or the economic order quantity. The number of order, which we refer to it as the annual demand divided by the optimum quantity, and find out the annual total cost and compute the cycle inventory. Here, that's the exercise where the annual demand you calculate it and so on is 200. That is optimum quantity equal to the square root of annual demand, which is 12,000 times S, which is unknown, divided by the holding cost, which is, in this case, 2 times 50 is 100. So I believe the ordering cost, it will be 50 after you do this equation. you do it yourself. Now we'll move to the second model in economic in inventory, which we call it as a quantity discount. You remember when we have the assumption for the economic order quantity, we mentioned the annual demand is fixed given, ordering cost is given, holding cost is given, and you also mentioned in our basic assumption for using EOQ, there is no quantity discount. Now we are going to allow quantity discount. What's quantity discount? Simply means the more you order, the less price you will pay. So we have different level of quantity and different level of price. The solution method for driving the optimum quantity discount is start. The first step is to start with the lowest price level and find the economic order quantity and find out whether it's feasible or not. If it's feasible, it means the quantity specified at the lowest price level, it falls within the range. If not, so it means not feasible. Therefore, step two, you go to the next price level and you find the optimum quantity. If satisfy the quantity level is specified at this price, so it's feasible. If it's feasible, you stop and find the total cost. If not, you go to the next price level and so on until you find a feasible solution. And from that, we can make some adjustment. We assume the material costs vary with the lot size. This means the price per unit decrease as lot size increase. So the more you order, the less price you will pay. The total cost, it will include plus the one we have it before, ordering cost plus holding cost, plus the discount price, which is simply the discount price is the annual demand multiplied times the item cost or price. The basic steps to choose the best alternative, which we use first of all. We use calculate quantity discount as we mentioned. We start at the lowest price level and find out whether it's feasible or not. If it's feasible, you stop and find the total cost. If not, you go to the next price level and so on. So adjust quantity if necessary according to the supplier discount scheme and to get the optimum quantity. So calculate the total cost. The total cost, as we mentioned, ordering cost as the same way we have it before, holding cost the same as we have it before. We add to the total cost in the quantity discount the annual demand time the item cost or item price. And basically we choose the best alternatives that give us the lowest total cost. We'll have an range of 1,000 to 999. The answer is yes, so it's feasible. So we have to adjust. The first one need no adjustment because that's the optimum quantity, that's a feasible solution, and you find the total cost. The second level, you make adjustment for the optimum quantity you obtain in order to get 4.8 dollar price. We use the minimum, which is 1,000. In order to get 4.75 per unit, we make adjustment, which is the minimum is 2,000, and you find classification or ABC analysis. ABC analysis simply means you have uh, different categories where we call A category, B category, C category, or A classification, B classification, C classification. A classification, it is this item with the highest dollar value. The dollar value for this item is very expensive, but the number of unit is low. B classification is moderate. Moderate means what? It's moderate dollar value and also moderate number of unit. C classification is the cheapest. It is the lowest dollar value, but the number of items is too much. I give you in the class example. For example, I remember a long time ago when we made there is a problem in one of the hospital in Egypt where they were complaining about losing. There is a lot of theft and losing a lot of items in their inventory. So we recommended them using ABC analysis. And they asked me, what's ABC analysis? I told them, can you give me a list of your inventory item? And this, it was a hospital where they make heart transparent, transplant, and so on. It's a heart hospital. So I told them, what's the inventory? So they have, for example, cotton needles, uh, all these items, which is a large quantity. I told them, what other item? They called me, there is what we call it as du'ama, for example. It is a small unit, but the cost of each unit is over 10,000 Egyptian pound. So I told them, where you store it? You store it in the same room. I told them, no, we should keep control for the highest expensive item, which is A classification. For B classification, it is with a moderate price and so on. And C classification, which it doesn't need a tight control or low level control. All inventory items don't have the same importance. In a department store, small but expensive items such as camera generate more profit and carry a higher loss due to theft than say children socks, for example. In camera, you when you go to the department store, you will find a vault for camera, expensive watches, jewelry, and so on, where they keep it in vault and they keep it with key and under control. But other socks and so on, you will find on the shelf with hundreds of socks, and they don't care for that. Thus, some items should have more control than others. This is the aim of ABC analysis, is to keep a tight control for your inventory. Uh, and as you can see from this graph, percent of value is high for A category. The first one to your left, that is the A category. The price value or dollar value is high. That's the yellow part, but the number of unit, percent of number of unit is low. The second one, in the middle, the percent of dollar value is moderate, and the percent of item also is moderate. C classification, the last one in your right, it is simply the percent of the dollar value is low, but the number of item is a lot. We call it as ABC analysis. And as you can see from this graph here, a diagram which is simply like a Pareto chart, total usage value and the number of unit in stock, percentage of number of unit in stock. That's they give it as a percentage. That's A classification. The one in the middle, B classification. The one in the right hand is the C. We give you an example here for number of units. Part they give you the part number where which each item it has like a barcode or identification or a code where they give code for each part. Here we refer to it as 1, 2, 3 up to 5. They give you the annual demand which is given. You give you the unit price which is also given. All you have to do is to find the usage value where you multiply the annual demand time unit value. That's what we call it as a dollar value. The dollar value is the last column in your right. And then you find the percentage. The percentage simply you divide each item dollar value 10,000 by divided by 100,000. For the second item, item number 2, when you multiply 1,000 times 2 is 2,000. You divide it by 100,000 to get the percentage. For item number 3, which is 10,000, the unit value is 8. That's the most expensive item. 80,000 divided by 100,000, so it's 80%. Which fourth item is 5,000, and the unit value is 1. Is 5,000 by 100,000. So you get the percent of dollar value. Here we'll solve this at the end of these slides, where the A category is top 20% of part approximately, B classification 40% approximately, C the bottom is 40% approximation. Have here class A is considered 80% of your value of total inventory. Class B is 15% value. C classification is 5%. That is the British standard for that is 20, 40, 40. The American classification is different from that. It give you range because you cannot really specifically have a fixed number where they have it here 80% value like a British system, but the American system they give you a range from 70 to 80% of dollar value That's considered as A classification. From 15 to 25, they consider as B classification. And C category, it is 5%, the same as the British system. So the only difference between British, they have it like 80, 15, 5. American systems, they have it as a range for A classification from 70 to 80, B classification from 15 to 25, and C classification is the same as 5%. The item here is like 15%, 15 to 20%, 15 to 35%, and 55% of item, it goes from C classification. That is the American standard. Uh, that is the example we have, the ABC analysis. We find the usage value. We rearrange based on the higher dollar value, it goes in the top. So item number 3, it has the highest, 80,000. When we divided 80,000 by 100,000, it gave you the percentage of dollar value, which is 80,000. 80,000 divided by 100,000 is 80%. 10,000 divided by 100,000, it's 10%. 5,000 divided by 100,000 is 5%. 3,000 divided by 100%, 100,000 is 3%. 2,000 divided by 100,000, it's 2%. So we can say A category is number 3. B category is item 1 and 4, it's 15%. And item 5 and 2, 3 plus 2 is 5%. So that is A, 1 item, B is 2 item, C is 2 item.